Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, aka Ray, and God is using me in this season to be a prophetic voice in regards to kingdom marriages. With everything that I say, take it back to God in prayer. Make sure that God is speaking to you through this message today, okay? But you all, I just wanted to share with you a quick word. And this is kind of like a part two to a video that I posted a few days ago in regards to initiating contact with your kingdom spouse. And I'll drop that video in here somewhere. But God did give me a little bit more revelation, and thank God that He did. And I love when the Holy Spirit comes back later and just gives me more revelation. But anyways, it came through a conversation with me and my sister. We were talking last night, and we were just talking about, men in general and just how the times have changed and men have changed, and, the masculinity that men had in the old times, in the Bible times, it's almost unheard of and not seen in our world today. There's so much confusion with masculinity. Men are more traumatized because of their upbringing in their adolescence. Maybe perhaps because they had an absent father, or maybe a domineering mother, okay, that somehow afflicted the man's mentality in some type of way. So, anyways, during this conversation, we begin to talk about the story of Ruth and Boaz, okay? And oftentimes, a lot of us miss this. A lot of people miss it because you don't hear it talked about as much in regards to Ruth and Boaz. And you hear a lot of people saying, a lot of women saying, I'm waiting on my Boaz. I'm waiting for God to send me my Boaz, okay? But the reality of it is that God did not send Boaz to Ruth. God sent Ruth to glean in Boaz's field, to be found by Boaz gleaning in his field, okay? And on top of that, Naomi and Ruth have this conversation. They have this dialogue, and you can read it for yourself in Ruth chapter 3. And Naomi began to speak to Ruth, and she's like, you need a husband. In so many words, you need a husband. I'm getting old. You need a husband. And she told Ruth to prepare herself to take a shower, to get dressed, or bath rather, get dressed, and, put perfume on, beautify herself as a woman, and go present herself to Boaz, okay? And so Ruth, of course, she was obedient, and she does as Naomi instructed her to do. And she prepares herself, and she goes to the threshing floor to present herself to Boaz, okay? So Naomi told her as well before she left to wait, don't just immediately go to him, but just kind of wait till he's had food and drinks and he's feeling in good spirits, and then go ahead and present yourself to him. So Ruth was like, okay, she did as Naomi instructed her to do, and she waited until Boaz was, comfortable and getting ready to rest for the evening. So Boaz, laid down and began to fall asleep and take himself a nap. And at that point, excuse me, and at that point, this is when Ruth came to Boaz and laid down at his feet. And when Boaz woke up, he noticed Ruth there, and he was like, hey, we know, who is this? Well, he didn't know it was her, so that's why he asked, who is this? And she said, this is Ruth. And, she asked him to cover her, okay, cover her with, his blanket or whatever he was using just to cover her. And what she meant by that, she was basically presenting herself to him. She was presenting herself to him as a wife. She was presenting herself to him as a suitable helpmeet. And we fail to realize that because we always talk about how we're waiting for our Boaz. But God is the one who divinely sent Ruth to Boaz. And Ruth was the one who initiated contact. Ruth is the one that initiated pursuing Boaz. She went to Boaz to present herself as his wife. He did not go to her and say, hey, Ruth, you're beautiful. you're single. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Let me be your kinsman redeemer. Let me be your husband. No, it didn't happen that way. Ruth went to Boaz and presented herself to Boaz in hopes that he would accept her and decide that, yes, indeed, this is the woman that I'm going to call my wife. And oftentimes we overlook that part of the story, right? We want that happily ever after and the man to be the one to pursue us. And that's okay because, we're women, right? We want a man to pursue us. But in some cases, in God's economy, God doesn't care who pursues who first. Okay? God's ways are different from our ways. His thoughts are different from our thoughts. How he does things is different from how we do things in the earthly realm. So God is not concerned whether it's the woman that pursues the man or whether it's the man that pursues the woman, okay? He's concerned about accomplishing his will and accomplishing his purposes in your individual life. And just like Ruth, God may be, and only you and God will know this, and you have to take it back to God. But God may be using you. God may be wanting to use you to initiate, excuse me, guys, I got hoarse all of a sudden. Initiate contact with your kingdom spouse. He may be wanting you to, reach out to him, to check up on him, to see how he's doing in this season of his life. Maybe when you did it previously in another season, it just wasn't the right time. But God is saying, hey, this is a time, this is a season. Send that text message, make that phone call. Stop living in your head and living in this unrealistic mind frame that, hey, no, I'm supposed to be pursued. He's supposed to find me. Boaz didn't find Ruth. Ruth found Boaz. Ruth went to Boaz. God sent Ruth to Boaz's field to glean. Although Ruth did not know that she was being sent to Boaz's field to glean because God had a divine appointment for her. And he was getting ready to set her up with her kingdom husband and her kingdom marriage. But by her obedience, God was able to work on her behalf. If Ruth never went to Boaz's field to glean, then God would not have been able to work through Boaz to notice Ruth. Okay? And then God had to prepare Ruth as well. And he used Naomi to speak wisdom into her, to encourage her, to take the first step. Because who's to say if Ruth didn't have Naomi didn't have that conversation with Ruth ahead of time to tell her, hey, go, get yourself ready, girl. Go on over there to Boaz and make yourself available to him because he's going to take you. He's going to be your kinsman redeemer. He's in our bloodline. He's in that family line, and he will consider you being his wife. Just imagine if Naomi wasn't there to encourage her. Ruth wouldn't probably have even thought about going to present herself to Boaz. But because God engineered her circumstances in such a way, he set everything in place in order to accomplish his will and his purpose. So you guys remember, be sensitive to God's voice, be sensitive to the Holy Spirit, because he may be calling you, just like Ruth, to step out in faith and initiate that contact. And from you being obedient, he can begin the process of bringing things together in regards to your kingdom marriage. Again, take it to God. Take it to God. Take it to God. And make sure that this message is a word for you in this season of your life. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.